Welcome all. Of course, people still entering, but okay, we need to start on our time. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. It was something that was asked from many federations just to have this meeting with many purposes, of course, to listen to some scientists, but more important is to connect between us and maybe to be possible to exchange experience, some documents, because in some countries it's possible that they have prepared something, they will prepare, so we can help also each other prepare something from each country, no matter that can be in a different stage or regulations. So the purpose that we organize this forum is that to exchange opinion and materials that will help us the next period, months, to reinstall the over-the-board chess activities. I want to thank also our special guests today, Mr. Bayramov, Mr. Shu, and Lim from Singapore, Elena, of course, and Ignatius is also a special guest that help us also with the scientists from Singapore. And of course, the structure of this talk is that first we will give the floor to the doctors to make some introduction. And then the representatives of federations can take the floor and speak about their experience, make questions, or share with us something new about the situation. So I'd like to ask, first of all, to the doctors, if somebody is has more limited time than the others to start first. Mr. Bayramov, want to start?
Yeah, I would like to start, if it's possible, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen. Can I share the screen, some presentation, or?
Yes, I would ask you also all the participants to mute your microphone if you don't speak while it's the presentation, so not to have other noises.
Okay, so I will try to share the screen to present with PowerPoint, if it's possible. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to meet you. I'm a doctor. I did my internship in France, but now I work in Baku. I would like to talk about chess and COVID-19. So actually, we have the coronavirus forced all tournaments in the world to be cancelled and suspended, especially for chess events also. I think we have lost so much to COVID-19. We have lost jobs, time, and opportunities also. So especially we are asking politicians, most of whom are lawyers and business people, to make decisions based around confidence interval. But right now, even the top scientists in the world are struggling with the complexity of COVID-19, especially most basic ideas about the disease, things like asymptomatic transmission or mortality rates and transmissibility are evolving on a daily basis. I would like to talk some medical protocols, how we can restart local tournaments, especially we need to start local tournaments. I would like to talk about some, it covers testing, personal protective equipment availability, so clear guidelines also, especially for social distancing, and a safe environment to train and to play the chess. So some medical protocols, we can keep things clean, for wear a closed face mask and avoid 1 meter distance also, especially measure the temperature for all participants before the tournament. So clean and disinfect hands of the players, and for especially children tournaments, no parents in the building of the tournaments, and cover our mouth and nose when coughing and or sneezing. With some medical protocols, I think we can restart, especially national levels tournaments, chess tournaments. So I would like to talk about vaccine also, because after providing long-term protection, I think we can restart international big tournaments also, especially actually in Moderna, a Cambridge and Massachusetts-based company manufactured already the vaccine. Especially we passed already the phase 1 trial involved for 45 people, and the results for on 8 of this per participant revealed developed neutralizing antibodies. And for July, I think we will try, we will begin a phase 3 clinical trials as early as July. And after providing long-term protection, I think we can restart international big tournaments also for end of this year. But I think for this summer, we can, with medical protocols, we can restart the just overboard activities, firstly in national levels, but we need some strict guidelines and with medical protocols. Thank you for invitation and for attention.
Thank you, Dr. Bayramov. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baymaro. Dr. Baymaro, if you will not stay with us a lot, I mean, maybe if there's any question to you, can be done now.
Okay.
Or, I mean, how much time you have?
I think I can answer some question also. Approximately 10 or 15 minutes. It's okay.
Okay. So I want you first to ask you a question, because, okay, I think it's a question, because I saw in your presentation, okay, of course, this we can discuss it from now. You said a cloth mask.
Yeah.
For me, you know, this is a very important question, let's say. What kind of mask can be used playing a chess game and not the player to breathe easily and to be protected?
I think for some simple medical mask also we can use, but we have good protection with N95 mask. It's a very close mask, but for players, yes, maybe it's difficult during the playing the chess.
Okay, so you think that a cloth mask can be enough?
Yeah, it's enough for protection, yeah.
Okay, if there's any other question to Mr. Bayramov or any of the participants, you can, of course, there is a way to raise hand, but okay, you can also take the microphone and ask something.
Okay, I would like to ask, what do you think about the square meters that we will need per person in closed rooms? And how long can they really stay then without being in big danger?
Sorry, you can...
In our country, we discuss now quite serious the option to restart to play, but the government says that we need at least 10 square meters per person in a closed room, yeah? And that the problem is that the virus in a closed room, when you sit there 5 or 6 hours without being able to make some fresh air or something, yeah, this is the biggest problem for us, yeah. And the question is, what do you believe, yeah? What is the minimum of square meters, yeah? What we will need for per player in a tournament?
Social distancing, I think 1 meter is enough for to have distancing. Avoid 1 meter, it's enough, I think, because with the times. The immunization also will have some immunization, especially with the times. And for protection, I think 1 meter it's really enough to avoid.
I understand this 1 meter. We understand, of course, yeah. But on the other side, yeah, that the concentration, if someone is ill from this virus, is not too big. Yeah, there's also a recommendation that per person must be a space of special square meters, yeah? And for example, the FIDE rules say that in a top tournament it should be 4 square meters, the minimum is 2 square meters, but our government now proposes 10 square meters per person. This would mean they need for 10 players to play 100 square meters. Do you agree with such a space that we need?
For some, for example, food tournaments also will restart with medical protocols. I think, for example, during the play of the food, we have only sometimes we haven't some distance. And I think if we can restart for Bundesliga and other tournaments, for chess tournaments also, we can restart with to avoid only 1 meter distance. I think it's enough.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bayramov. Okay, and I mean, let's say this is a matter of the minimums square meters needs for a playing hall. I understand the question of Mr. Kastner. We will discuss this and later has to do with our regulations. But I think that when we will have, we will listen all the presentations, maybe we will have a more clear picture from all doctors that are...
Alois has a question.
Yes.
Send you a message.
Alois?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, yeah? Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm from Croatia. In Croatia, we are starting with competitions in June. In last few days, measures were actually abandoned. Only this meter and a half distance, but of course they are not strict measures. For example, in Bundesliga in football, they said it's not possible to celebrate goals, but people were still doing that if you were watching last weekend of football in Bundesliga. So I think that won't be strict measures. They are only recommending masks. We are not obliged to take masks. So actually we are planning competition national championship top 12 grandmasters to play in late June, also leagues. So actually they allow us, tourists are coming in the country. We have only few cases. Last 2 days was I think 0, and then 2 cases per day. So actually we are opening completely country. Hotels they were discussing some possibilities that we are eating in different times or something, but now they abandoned all this. So people are actually we are becoming completely free of some strict measures. So like I said, only they are saying a recommendation. You need to have some kind of paper towels, maybe to have some disinfection and recommendations of masks. So we are starting late of June.
Okay, so Alois, you wanted to say that in Croatia the states are not putting hard...
They are allowing from 15th of June. They are allowing all sports competition to be played. Till the moment now they are allowing training. There are no sports competition, but after 15th of July, now we are still having only 40 people. Measure of gathering only 40 people. They will abandon this, so it will be probably 200-300. I don't know. So they said to us, because it's important that you plan the event. You cannot say, you cannot prepare a league to start in 1 day. So you need to have some kind of idea. They say start to plan. And after 15th of June, they will make some kind of official decision to allow everything. So water polo is starting, football is starting, all other
sports. We understand this, and of course, in each country, as many participants also mentioned, there is different things are happening and in different way. And of course, we are in the first stage that everybody will go out, and then again they will see what will happen. And this is good to have experience from each country what is happening. So what we keep from your let's say saying is that you don't have any restriction in playing hall. You can go and play without any new, let's say...
No, they say meter and a half distance, but I'm sure, okay, when the game is starting, people can sit with the distance of meter and a half. But I think that no one will make some kind of inspection if someone is getting over the table. I don't think they will use this, because it's some kind of only this 1.5 meter distance, nothing else. They're just saying a recommendation, not temperature measuring, nothing. They just say you can.
Alois, I propose to, before we go to present in each country, let's say this, I propose to give the floor and to other doctors. So,
okay. But one thing, Theo. Before that, it's very now vivid. thing. I don't know what will happen, but if I'm not also, I have some doubts before we start to play. So I don't know, maybe that could be, but when the first move will be played, I'm sure that they will open everything.
Yes, just as I said in the beginning here, we are not to say what should happen in Croatia, in Austria, in Greece, or in Georgia. I mean, the federation and the states decide what will happen.
I have permission to play. I have from my government that they allow us to play, but only 40 people at the moment.
40
after
people,
15,
yes.
After 15 of June, they will allow even bigger events.
Okay. So this is the important information, and you know, if we have from federations such orders, it's good. From states, it's good to have it. For example, we know that in Croatia they allow till 15th of June 40 people to play. This is an important information. Okay, that this is what we try to gather now, and to combine all this information. Okay, so I would say that it's better to give the floor to Mr. Lim or to Mr. Or to continue with this presentation and then to open the discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Bayramov, thank you very much for your time that you were with us. We appreciate it very much that you give us your time, and I have also your presentation, and I will share later with the participants.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
And before I give the floor to doctors, I want to say that I saw a lot of representatives who want to speak. After the doctors, one by one, can take the floor and take his experience.
Please, Dr. Liang.
Yeah. Maybe Liang, would you like to start?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity as well. I was an international master a long time ago, thanks to Ignatius over here, after which I became an infectious disease specialist. And I think that many countries will do things differently depending on the states of the control of COVID-19 in their countries. But perhaps what I can do is to share the characteristics of the virus and the disease as we know it now. And then you can decide for yourselves what to do with that information. So the virus is like any other respiratory virus. It spreads mainly by droplets. And usually droplets, when we breathe or cough, it goes up to a distance about 1.5 meters. And that's why there's this arbitrary 1 to 2 meter distance that a lot of countries and territories set in place. But if somebody is talking very loudly or singing or sneezing, then that virus can spread around more quickly. And in an enclosed room where people are there for hours, like you're playing a long chess game, then it's very likely that the virus will spread throughout the room if one person is infected. That is especially true if the ventilation is poor. We now know that people can spread the virus before they develop symptoms. So between 2 to 3 days before a person manifests fever or cough, and if they're harboring the virus, they can spread it to others. And that's why some of the precautions that we have in place, like temperature checks and others, they don't actually catch all cases with the virus. The recommendation for wearing a mask is not so much to protect myself, for instance, for getting COVID-19, but it's actually to prevent a person with COVID-19 to spread the disease to others, because that mask prevents most of the virus from escaping from me if I'm infected and then spreading around the room. So the mask is not really to protect other persons, it is to prevent an infected person from spreading the virus. And that's why the recommendation is for a cloth mask, which offers less protection to the individual, but is enough to filter away the large part of the virus to others. So in that case, if everybody wears a mask, then the degree of protection will increase. The virus is also quite harmless to many young people, but it becomes more deadly as the person becomes older. So anyone above the age of 60, for instance, has a higher risk of dying from the virus. In terms of what happens within spaces where there has been large spread of viruses, it tends to happen in places that's very crowded, where there's a lot of shouting or singing going on. There's been a lot of sports events and karaokes and other kinds of big gatherings that's been implicated in the spread of the virus. That's why you find that many countries have limited the number of participants or the number of gathered people in a gathering to less than 50 or less than 10 in some cases. And they just want to experience to see how this turns out before they open it up to others. I understand in chess it's very difficult to have a 1.5 meter space between two persons who are playing chess. Ideally, that should be spread between boards. So at least you maintain some distance between boards rather than between players who, when they get excited, will lean over and knock over pieces and all that sort of stuff. Right? The other thing, as I mentioned, is the ventilation of the room. It's impossible to have open air in Europe all the time. It's not possible in Singapore as well, but it's good to have well-ventilated halls when you are playing, where the air exchange has been certified to meet certain standards. And I won't go into more details here. Let me pause here and I'll let Jeremy or Eleanor continue. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. Any questions or first doctor's advice? Todoros.
I think that I have also questions, but I think we can listen also Mr. Lim and make questions to both.
Yeah.
Because then we can relieve them also. I mean,
please.
Yeah.
Dr. Nim, please.
Yep. All right. I think that Dr. Su is much more current in the chess world than I am. I think my last Olympiad was in 1988. So it has been quite a while. But if I can take what the first two speakers they had shared and to also add it and to organize into the pre-tournament preparations, what happens during the tournament and really after that. I would urge that as Dr. Su had well shared, that there is an asymptomatic phase where the disease can be spread. But I would say that chess organizers also need to plan for declarations. So similar to like in Singapore, if one were to enter a sensitive building, one would need to declare whether he or she has had any respiratory symptoms in addition to the temperature check. And I do think that it's up to the individual organizers to decide just how punitive you would want a false declaration to be, because people who have symptoms can fairly easily hide them, especially if everyone has to wear a mask or if one self-medicates with some antipyrexic to bring down any temperature. Secondly, in the pre-tournament preparations, you also need to think about what if someone declares that they're not feeling well, what then happens, and if they're gonna be disqualified, lose rating points and all these, then the human incentive is to cheat, which would be quite clinically disastrous for everybody. So in terms of the pre-tournament preparations, there's quite a lot of thinking that needs to be done around just the structure and the incentives and the penalties for not being totally truthful. Just to comment that the World Health Organization does not recommend any form of really laboratory testing at this point in time. So really requiring persons to go for PCR swabs or antibody or antigen tests at this point in time is not recommended. But the state of the science is very rapidly evolving, so please do consult Dr. Su regularly. In terms of during the tournament itself, I think that Dr. Su has really pretty much mentioned everything. Perhaps some of the other things that you may want to think about is how to disinfect the room between rounds. Because as what Dr. Su said, it is not just the presence of any infected person, but the concept of the exposure and the viral load. So perhaps in between rounds, if you have an hour, 2 hours, you can disinfect the room, whether using hydrogen peroxide or using UVC light. And this helps to reduce the viral load. And after the tournament, I would urge organizers to reinforce to all participants that they should keep the organizers informed. If they do develop symptoms 2-3 days after, they have to inform. And this is especially so for any international tournaments, because we would not want chess to be associated with a global second wave that would be very detrimental to the global reputation of this game that we're all very concerned about. And I will stop here and I'll hand the time back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nim.
much. And they will
and
be.
then I say something or later?
Zora, I think she wants to ask. I think it's better to give questions first of all to doctors from Singapore.
Yeah.
To go to Helen because it's. I want to ask also. I think many people. I mean, about because we need to maybe to prepare some guidelines. You said some very interesting things. I want to listen to you with some specific questions. I understand from all that the mask helps very much. And the second question is, do you recommend restrictions in the playing halls according to square meters? This question that was put in before. I mean, normally, as it was said, for us, it was around 2 square meters per player or even less, 1.5 square meters for young participants. So what is your opinion about the space that that they can play a chess tournament needed?
I would combine what had been said earlier, and really I think Dr. Su made a very pertinent point that if we think of the game played between two players as essentially one pod, then the space between boards is important. So even if there is an infection, the persons who are most at risk would be the person who is infected and the direct opponent. And of course, all organizers do need to help all the participants to understand that playing in a chess tournament is not absolutely benign. There is some risk, as there is with any gathering of really multiple persons. So the distance between boards would be important. And as Dr. Su mentioned earlier, the ability to ventilate the room or maybe if I take a step back, not just ventilate, but to disinfect the room regularly. And that's a function of really the ability to kill the viruses through radiation or other measures, or to have the air cycles really turn over. And this helps to reduce viral load. Liang, over to you.
I think you have been very comprehensive. So it makes it difficult in winter when all the windows are closed and it's just heating. And so winter events will be particularly tricky because the viral load can build up in the room very quickly over time. Over.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a lot of questions. I will give the floor, but I know that there is one question that many have, and this is why I want to make the general question to you. Many people are, let's say, afraid or worried about the pieces, that people are touching the pieces and during the games. And the question is, do the players need to wear gloves? Does that is help? Because even if we disinfect the place, okay, then the pieces again, they will be touched during the game. So what is your opinion on this?
Thank you. That's a very good question. I think if people wear gloves for a long time, the gloves also get contaminated, and through that, the pieces also get contaminated. So I think gloves, unless you change gloves every game, that's not going to be very helpful. More importantly, the person should try to use a hand sanitizer or wash their hands between games, and then to avoid touching their face, because the virus can get in through the eyes or the mouth, and that's where wearing a mask will help, because it prevents that person from touching his nose and his mouth. And as Jeremy mentioned, after each game, you can clean the pieces with a disinfectant. But more importantly, it is to make sure that people have the option to use hand sanitizers in between games.
Thank you very much. I think
In between games or in between moves?
in between moves, it's the same opponent, so it's not such a big issue.
Okay, so I understand this is also opinion of many that gloves are not helping so much. I mean, as the mask, I mean, during the game, it's not changing a lot. So any other questions to the doctors? Maybe Alex Holozak wants to ask something, except the information we give to the doctors, or it's someone else that wants to take the floor to make question, not to describe his country position.
Yeah, I do have a question actually. A couple of people have wrote to me as in my qualification commission role, and they are debating running tournaments a bit like visually handicapped tournaments. So each player has their own board, maybe sat a couple of meters apart, So then they'll make the move, tell their opponent the move, the opponent will move, and playing the game like that. That way, each player has his own bubble, as the doctors just used the word. Do you think that that's a good thing to do, or do you think that's a lot of effort for not a lot of gain?
I would chime in. Personally, I think that the gain is relatively marginal. And if we're going to play in these bubbles, then everyone might as well stay at home, right? And it's fully possible now to do online exams that students are doing at the O and A levels. But this does take away from the joy of playing in a chess tournament. So if I were to balance the risk-reward ratio, I would say that it's not worthwhile, but glad to hear other views.
I actually agree with Jeremy. I think in a tournament hall where you have many players there for a long time, this space between people is a bit less important than having a well-ventilated hall, because people will get up and move around unless you force them to sit down. So in that case, the opponents might as well be facing each other than to be, diagonally across from each other, because the distance gain is not very much unless you have a huge hall.
Thank you. Any other question from our participants?
I'm also participants. I would like to just mention about this, because many, I know, states and not only states, but air companies especially, they are thinking now how to restart about using the COVID-19 passport, which normally before flight, 72 hours before, you'll be obliged to get a PCR test in order to fly. I think this point somehow will help. But what do you think about if we will force organizer of the mass event we are talking about when over 500 players, sometimes 1,000 or more, to oblige also after round 3 to make a PCR test for all participants? Of course, it's an expensive one. We understand it.
Maybe I will just start. And yes, we could test persons every single day, but it would be horrendously expensive. And to be quite honest, given that there is a global shortage of the reagents and the kits, I am quite doubtful that chess would be allocated so many test kits. And frankly, from a societal point of view, if we had to prioritize nursing homes and healthcare facilities versus chess tournaments, I would suspect that nursing home facilities and hospitals would take priority over chess tournaments. So perhaps if we wait a year, 2 years, and if there's no vaccine in sight, and if there is no longer any shortage, then there might be something to think about. But the swaps are not pleasant, I would assure you that. Liang, over to you.
I agree. And many people are now thinking about testing self-swabs or even using saliva as a test. But as Jeremy mentioned, these tests are quite expensive at present. And if you were to do it every few days, the yield might not be so great for an event. It's better to plan beforehand the tournaments and screen people as they come than to do the testing during the actual tournaments itself.
Zurab, if I can speak to that, because we actually did it during the candidates, as people will know. We were tested every 10 days. We were checked every day by the on-site doctors for symptoms. Now, that was just with a small number of people, and they were there for quite a few hours. So when you upscale that to a large tournament, I think it becomes prohibitive.
Andrew, yes, I think this already was said also with the doctors, that it will be very difficult to make this to large events, to imply such tests in large-scale events. It was answered this question. Yes, it's possible maybe for small events, professional events to have this test, but it will be very difficult for large. And I want to tell you also, Zurab, that because also I know now in the beginning they said about this 72 hours test for flight, but now they cancelled this as a pro request. For example, also in Greece now from 15th of June you can come from some countries without this test. So this is something that maybe will not be obligatory for all traveling. So any other question to our doctors? Because I think that from Singapore, I mean the doctors from Singapore, yes? Or if not, we can continue. I just want to ask them something last that is important for us, ECU. Do they believe that world, first of all, and then European big congresses with 500 or 1,000 people will be possible in 2020? Because you are chess players, and you know you are chess players, international and you know exactly the conditions.
Maybe I will start. I would say that almost every medical specialty meeting in 2020 has been either cancelled, rendered virtual, or really shrunk down to just the key speakers who will be in the city in person, and everyone else will just watch. So I would be quite pessimistic about a 2020 large-scale event. Liang, over to you.
Yes, I agree. I mean, the big rock concerts are cancelled, and the Bundesliga and other football events are played without spectators. So I think every country now imagines the risk of holding large-scale events to be very high, unless you're in Brazil or maybe in the US. It's not going to happen very often.
Okay, thank you very much, because your estimation is very important on this, because it's many people are thinking about this, what will happen till the end of the year. So if there is no other question to the doctors, we can continue with Ellen, that will also make us a presentation, and then we can share also our experience from our countries. Of course, you doctors, if you have time, we will be very happy to stay with us. Your presentation is really, in my opinion, high importance, because you are very specialist and you are chess players. But in any case, thank you from your presence here. It was valuable, and it helped us very much to make this meeting more useful for our participants.
My dear Singapore,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's really up to you. You want to listen our chess meeting, or maybe you want to listen Ellen, how she developed. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me. When I saw Dr. Liang and Dr. Jeremy Lim would join, I thought probably I was not so necessary because of the experience that you have, and thank you for sharing your experience. I would just think in terms of three major areas that every organizer has to think. So that will be the personal level, so how you protect the people that come, like the participants. So what will be their requirements for personal protective equipment and hygiene, and so on, and screening, like thermal screening, or so the measures that are at the personal level. The second level is the environment. So as doctors mentioned, the major part of it will be the ventilation and disinfection protocols. So the room should be well ventilated, and then there should be the protocol for cleaning and disinfection of the hole, of the playing hole. And the third one, which is probably the most important for the organizers, is the policy. So what kind of policy, like Dr. Lim mentioned, if someone gets a viral infection, so what will be the response of the organizers? Should they go and send them to test for COVID-19? Who will pay for the test? What if they confirm they have the case? What will be the liability? So if I get COVID-19 during the chess tournament, so what will be the contract between the organizers and the players? not to be liable if someone gets COVID-19 during the chess tournament, because obviously every player can go out and meet some other people after they complete the chess game. It's not only the chess hall where they meet other people, right? So how liable can a chess organizer be? Or chess federation be, which organizes the chess tournament, and what kind of what should be there in place when you make a contract and when you invite the participants. So what about the penalties and punishments that Dr. Lin just mentioned, and about also there's a lot of personal stress. As there was a tournament I heard in Russia, and people were complaining. The last tournament that was conducted in Russia, there was a huge tournament where people were complaining they were in a lot of stress. Of course, they should take the personal responsibility, but what if my opponent has just a simple viral infection, and it stresses me out when I see that he sneezes or when he wipes his nose? Or what if I'm wearing a mask and I need to wipe my nose? If I go to the bathroom, it means that the bathroom will be the unsafest place of the playing hall, right? Or should we organize a kind of open space for wiping noses and for measures like this? So there is a lot of things that is policy that we should think in three different areas. So how do we protect participants with personal protective equipment and with appropriate placing of the hand disinfectants and hand washing and thermal screening? How we organize the area, the playing halls, and what we put in the contracts and in policy measures. So I'm not. I think at national level, everyone will have to stick to their own national guidelines, and they can be more or less free. But regarding international levels, that can be even more complicated because you have participants who might come with their COVID-19 passports and with their screening that they don't currently harbor the virus. But what about the locals that will meet them? Should we require the locals to also screen before the tournaments or not? So I think if we start thinking in these three major categories, then we can think about the appropriate policies. Like, what if someone is disqualified from the tournament because they present with the symptoms? What about the placing in the rating, or what about the rating? Do they lose? And cheating and also stuff like that. I can take my Tylenol and come to play, and I will pass the thermal screening without anyone noticing it. So how we avoid that, and how we incentivize the people not to cheat and to disclose if they get some viral infection symptoms. So that is, I cannot say much at this point in time, and not more than the doctors from Singapore said. But I was currently thinking that we should think in three different major areas and put the policies, put the measures, and think about three different areas. Then it depends on the individual national level restrictions also, what you put inside.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ellen. I don't know if it is particular, let's say, question to Ellen, or we can also start to share simultaneously our experiences. I want to say also, I don't know, because I saw now the conversations, our doctors also are speaking in the chat, and they have more information. I want to tell you that today it's at least one more doctor here, Mr. Thomas Michos from Greek Chess Federation, a very good doctor also. I don't know if Thomas, you want to say something, to speak to us about this matter you discussed about the masks with the rest.
Yes, thank you, Theodoros. Thank you very much. Well, I told about the surgical masks are much more comfortable to wear. Surgeons wear it for many hours. Cloth masks are fine, are cheaper. You you can wash them and use them every day, but they cause a suffocation feeling to many people. I don't. I think that if we should use simple surgical masks. Another, I would like to comment about spectators. In all sports, we have no spectators. Maybe when our tournaments, there must be a new rule that players should not be also spectators when they don't have. There should be some restrictions about moving among between tables for players who have not finished their game yet, just to avoid spreading possible virus. To be honest, I think we're in a very difficult situation because we have to take some risk. There's no policy to begin again tournament, even in national tournaments, without taking some kind of risk about the virus. And also a big question is when somebody in a tournament, in a 9-round tournament, has some symptoms, considered like an infection of the infection. What happens to the tournament? What happens then? Then maybe there should be some. What happens to the other tournaments, the other tournament players? Should the tournament be stopped? Should the tournament be stopped when check the players, check the opponents of the previous rounds? These are very difficult issues, and I think we don't have the answers yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I want now to ask anyone that wants to share some experience of this country, because it's different. Ignatius also is welcome. Also, he has many years in FIDE and he has many experience about these events. Anytime he wants to take the floor. I saw Mr. Pugachev that explaining that in Russia now they have some hard measures. So it's good to have this different information from different countries as much concern the international competitions. So, Mr. Pugachev, you want to say something?
Yes, well, yes. Only now there is some decrease, yes, and Moscow has a quarantine regime until the end of May, and we will wait for other statements from our government. But they say that the peak is past. I don't know, and some regions very different situations. Yes, and in Moscow. Probably the biggest problem with coronavirus. Yes, and for chess events, about chess events, we hope that from August, ideal focus is July maybe, we will be able to resume tournaments. We have postponed all our main events, national team championship, youth, of course, junior championship, school championship, and it's really difficult to hold all the events in autumn or September, October, and of course international tournaments. There are many questions and without answers, unfortunately now. Yes, but it's very good that we can discuss these matters, and thank you for useful information. I will spread it, I will share it with my colleagues, of course.
Thank you very much. I want to tell you also that we record this meeting, so we can also publish and give this information to more people. But Mr. Pugachev, I want to ask you something, because okay, Russia is a country with many participants in the national events and national tournaments. I heard that there is an advice for children not to travel this year from Russia. Is this true? I mean,
not. It's really one more big question about traveling, and we have no restrictions now. Yes, but we're waiting some clarifying from our government. It's a really big problem, yes, with flights, yes, between cities. Yes. I don't know exactly now. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Artem, very much. Thank you very much, because it's important also to have the views from different parts of the world. Because I want also, if you want to speak, to give the floor to Mr. Bos from Netherlands, from Holland, because they give us information that they have more strong ban.
About Ignatius, invite Ignatius and then switch on Ignatius.
Okay. Ignatius, you are ready to take the floor?
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me here. I think ECU has again shown the world that is taking the lead in several angles. I always congratulated Zurab and Theo for the very fine work that you are doing. So when COVID-19 started in Singapore and Asia, we thought that it was only just Asia, but when it's crossed over to Europe and the numbers began to be alarming, instinctively I told myself that it's very unlikely to have OTB tournaments even until the end of the year. I'm normally a very optimistic person, but when it comes to this extensive pandemic of COVID-19, I think we should be more careful. We are all chess lovers. We are all chess organizers. We love to organize. We love to see people play. But in a time like this, we have to be more prudent. I think that the doctors have spoken, and different countries in Europe have also different periods of allowing chess tournaments. I'm afraid in Asia, I have not yet heard of any of my Asian friends who are allowed to organize any chess tournament at the moment, not in Asia. Okay, I see that we need to see in the next half of the year how this is going to turn up. Of course, national events, different countries can plan according to the restrictions your respective governments put. That is not a problem. But when it comes to international tournaments, I think we have to be more careful. So when I heard the question about the Russians probably not allowing kids to play international, I think it is understandable, because when you talk about children, not only the children are playing, the parents are traveling. Sometimes elderly parents also. I think there needs to be some kind of a transition phase. That means to say, between organizing national events and opening up international events in Europe. There needs to be a phrase. Because why? Because ECU has your own official tournaments. You cannot say that, oh, in let's say, for example, September, we are free to free to organize and free to play tournaments. Then all the organizers will jump in and say that I want my tournament in October, I want my tournament in December. You suddenly see a big surge of events going on. Then how are you going to control? I mean, how are you going to avoid clashes? Likewise, international tournaments for FIDE. So there needs to be a time frame of approximately 3 to 4 months to allow FIDE to come up with its plan and schedule of official FIDE international world level tournaments, and then the continents to put in your continental events, and then spread out for the other organizers to put in their regular traditional tournaments. This was what we did in FIDE when I was in charge of the calendar. Theo will understand that. So I'm afraid that once we have countries jumping to organize the open tournaments, there will be a chaos on the chess calendar. And here, I hope the ECU will again show FIDE the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ignatius. Thank you very much for your...
Thank you. Your comments are very valuable. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ignatius. And Now I want to go to other representatives of Europe. I invite before Mr. Bors from Holland, if you want to take the floor.
Sure. Thank you very much, Theodoros. I don't know if everybody can hear me.
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. Yes, it's of course very useful to have this meeting here. I want to thank the European Chess Union for this. It was very helpful to hear the advice of the doctors. In the Netherlands, we already established a protocol to play chess, and it was on the basis of, let's say, blindfold chess competitions. So I thought the advice of the doctors here was very useful. The main thing I want to say now, because I think all different countries are trying in their own way to start again the chess tournaments, is that we are thinking about a way to start our national championship again. And this will be a round robin for 8 persons, both in the open section and in the women's section. And we are thinking to spread it in the Netherlands in 4 different locations and have the players play via computer screens, but they can have their chess sets. And we will try and work with our government to see if we can hold championship in this way. And if successful, then of course we will report to the ECU, and hopefully other countries can gain from this experience. Okay. Yes, that's what I would like to add.
Thank you. Thank you. I want also to repeat always to any of you from your federation, if you have a plan, a written plan, and you can share. I mean, we intend to make a page and share all this there, so everybody can have some information or some invitations that they published, how these tournaments will be organized, so to take some idea. But I want also to ask, because, okay, what we are listening to now is a little pessimistic. I want also to listen a little bit Gunnar, that I heard that in Iceland they start already school tournaments. Gunnar, are you here?
Yes, yes. All sports for children are allowed in Iceland. So next weekend we will have a school tournament for children under 16. We have to forbid parents to be there because no observers are not allowed to come there. Only 50 adult people. But after next Monday, then all sports are allowed in Iceland. So football, handball, everything. So we can go back on track on Monday. We only have to we have to try to have social distance. We have to have everything clean and so on, but no restrictions. So we can start on Monday. Very good. But in Iceland, we are very lucky because I think there are 3 infected people in the country right now. So the situation is quite very good.
Thank you, Gunnar. I want to ask others because I saw some interesting. For example, Mr. Hendunen from Finland, he said that from 1st of June, 500 people events allowed. Mr. Hendunen, you are here. Can you inform us about this?
Yes, Mr. Hendunen from Finland. Yes, in Finland, the government has set restrictions until the end of the month of May. And the restrictions are that maximum 10 people can gather in gatherings or meetings or anything like that. Actually, we will organize a small tournament of 8 players and one arbiter and one organizer just end of the month. That's an international tournament, but with Finnish participants. But from beginning of June, the government has allowed gatherings of maximum of 500 people. Now, how this will be organized and what kind of restrictions they will apply, we don't exactly know yet. The Finnish Chess Federation has not planned to organize any major tournaments during the summer, at least end of August. We typically would have a very big tournaments in July, international tournament or 2 actually, and then a very big event end of July the Blitz team tournament with some 600 to 1,000 participants. So we have cancelled all these gatherings anyway, and they will be organized next year only. We have also cancelled all championships for children, women, and general players for this year. So we are not going to organize big events, even though the restrictions are lifted, at least for some degree. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you very much for this information. So we understand that from Finland till September also nothing will be organized even in national level, except maybe some small round robin tournament.
That's right.
That's right. Okay. Dominique Ross is here because he has many interesting ideas, and he was one of the federation president that was also asked to have on such meeting.
Yes, this virus came to us a bit later, but it spread big, not as big as Spain and Italy, but things are getting better now, and we are opening in stages. So like tennis is possible, and some water sports like surf. So I hope from 1st of June, things will be getting open. But still, as chess is played in a sports hall, a closed hall, it will take some time to be possible to play. But the government now is challenging each federation to make a guideline or protocol, which we should have, like if we have a playing hall, we should have an isolation room if somebody gets sick. We should have a protocol how people, when get into the playing hall, they have to disinfect their hands and use a mask. And we should also disinfect the playing hall. And then we also should have a protocol if these tournaments, where will the players stay at the hotels. Now the government is making specification for hotels, which they give a stamp. It's called safe and clean. So we should use this kind of hotels with this certification. And also like the foods in restaurants they will have. Normally we have these restaurants with buffet. Things will now have to change. There cannot be any buffet anymore because it's a very big health risk. So they should have another person which gives the food to the players. And then we have to have a strict guidelines with which person in the playing hall has to do. If the arbiter, the director, and the players. What should each person do before they have a direct protocol, proper bathroom? We should make lines on the floor maybe and things like this. But still there is problems like the air conditions. Some air conditions are good and some other air conditions are not the same. Not all the air conditions are the same, but if you open the windows, it helps a bit, but the air condition is not doesn't work as good with the open windows. So this, of course, is a problem. Also, we could try to find possibilities to play an open door in closed places. I think that would lower the risk, but we have the problem with the sun, of course, to play outside. But it can be, I would think, if we can manage to play outside, the risk would be much lower. And then we were thinking and buying great quantity of masks, which we would give to the players at the beginning of each round, and they have some hand disinfection on the chessboard for each player, of course. And then we should have some cleaning person, which would be disinfecting the places at the toilets during the tournaments, all this kind of situation. And of course, maybe we should have a privileged doctor during the game, which can be contacted, or which also signs the guidelines and accept this. We are thinking in when it's possible in a fortnight to make a test with some players outside, also to see how react the players with playing with the mask. Some player can have asthma. If we could use gloves, I think it's maybe not the best, but how is this for a player not to touch his face during 4 hours? It's very difficult. We know we all play chess, so not to touch on the face or on the hair during a game is nearly impossible. But some things we would do, and we will present these guidelines now to the government on Monday, and then we will have to wait what they will say and how we can do it. But mainly the goal is that we can do our national championships, finish our season as a federation. All our international tournaments we had in the summer will be cancelled, and our participation internationally will also be quite difficult, because probably for many youth kids, we should have, as other federations, they always take a doctor with them to when they participate in championship. For us, this will be a big cost, of course, and all the doctors are also working, so there are not many available doctors to do this kind of work, so it's quite difficult. But I think the big challenge, of course, is how many square meters we have to reach for each player in the room, or should be the minimum, but it can change to each federation. And the risk we will have to go is, and there's no big solution, is when a player is playing to another, they are less than 1 meter. And this will be one of our big difficulties, like to play in the same room, in a closed room.
Thank you, Dominique. Very detailed description of the situation you have in Portugal. I don't know, I mean, who will next, because I see a little bit, I don't know if Mikel from Mikel Andreasen from Armenian Federation want to tell us, because they said that already they started with a Blitz tournament.
Oh, hello everyone. I would, if it's possible, I can share you some pictures of our tournament that we held a week ago. So it was, of course, a Blitz tournament where there were only 8 players, and of course we held it in a very big hall because our government has restrictions, so a person should be in 8 square meters for each person. I think it was okay, but of course it's we all understand that it will be very difficult to hold big tournaments with many participants, so we still don't know how to go on, and today I was hoping that there will be some solutions, and I hope that this discussion will help us to find solutions together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. You saw also in one table how we can play chess. I have one question from Mr. Boss, and I want to answer this because it's important information from all about European tournaments and of 2020. And I want to tell you what we're discussing, because now we are about 30 federations here, from the most active also. What we discussed approximately about the ECU tournaments in the last board. We also share the same concerns, and this is why also we were from the first to stop our activities from the beginning of March. Actually, we didn't hold any tournament except online event this year. So our, let's say, predictions is similar to that what we are hearing today from the doctors and from all, is that of course the international events are very difficult, not only because of the situation, but also, as correctly Ignatius said and others, in order to organize a championship, European championship, you cannot decide in 1 month. You have to decide some months in before and to make invitations. So even the situation is good. For example, in August, we cannot say now we hold this event in October. It will not be time, for schedule. So our thinking is the following. For us, we believe that the maximum we can do this year is our professional tournaments, the European women and individual, which is the end of the year, November, December, if of course the circumstances are much better. Means that the country opens, maybe there is some kind of vaccine, and because these tournaments can also, because our professional players can also, let's say, be organized in 1-2 months, by the meaning that it's easier for professionals to make their arrangements in a short period than for kids and parents and all these big mass tournaments. So our initial thinking, of course, for now is that we are hoping that we can organize these events if the situation will be improved till September very much. This is our opinion, because this is also important for professionals, because professionals need to play chess and even for their income. So we will try for these events very much. I mean, showing all the situation in the countries that hosting the tournaments, in the international flights, because really today we cannot know what will happen, for example, in September, that we can make a final decision. For the rest events, 2 major events we have, Club Cup, beginning of October. Of course, Austrian Federation is here, they can also brief you. We decided to make final decisions in the beginning of June. For me, this event is difficult, not only because of the conditions, but also because the clubs need time to prepare and money to hire players. So this kind of event for me is difficult also. Even the organizer can do it, the people to be able to find, let's say, compose their teams and come. Then we have in November European Youth in Turkey. As everybody says, Turkish Chess Federation informed that they want to wait till July, 4 months before they announce that they cannot do it or postpone. We accept this term because, okay, in any case, there is no event if there is no invitation. So to wait 1 month before, 1 month still, or 1 month and a half doesn't change anything. So our predictions today is that, of course, tournaments can be organized only after October, November, December. But our focus and our, let's say, hope and medical hope is that we will be able to make in the end of the year, November, December, the European Individual Open and Women. So this is the information from the ECU side. Of course, I want also, because now we are speaking for practical things, if the Austrian Federation, Mr. Pocksteiner or Mr. Kastner want to say something more about the Club Cup in Austria.
Yeah, Mr. Kastner, as our General Secretary, is preparing guidelines which we must present to our Health Ministry. And then we will see what they accept end of May. So our hope is that then from June we can start with national tournaments. In general, events for indoor sports could be allowed for participants up to 100 players. And then, as you know, Austria is a country of culture. So from beginning of 1st July, in general, events with 250 participants should be allowed. And beginning with August 1st, up to 500 participants, or up to 1,000 if you have a special concept for security. So I hope that this influence of other events like cultural events has also a positive influence for chess. So we must finally wait, and I hope if we have tables with 80 by 80 centimeter and a distance to each other table in any direction of 1 meter, So that for about 4 square meters that the ministry will allow this, but we must wait the final decision. Very interesting is also German government. I read that Germany is famous for organizing international fairs, and the definition the German government made is that fairs are no mass events. Yeah, you see here the pressure of the economy, and I think in August will be the first fair, and they will divide this in parallel events with people up to 1,000 persons. So they will make a procedure, a special procedure how to manage this, but to allow that also a fair can happen. So all this influence from culture, from other kind of sports, and from different branches of economy will have also positive inputs to chess events, I think.
Johan, thank you, Johan.
If possible, I would like to add something still.
Yes, yes.
In Austria, the situation is, of course, like Johan told, especially these efforts now done in the way of culture. But on the other side, we have, of course, our sports department, and they have now made at the beginning of May some regulations for the outdoor sports. They allow there some trainings at least, and in some sports like football, they allow to start the league in, I guess, now in beginning of June, yeah, but without spectators, of course, yeah. But we do not have any regulations up to now for indoor sports, yeah. And of course, we can hope that this will be for chess similar like in culture, but it is not that up to now. What we are doing now is we work on to get an assessment from some expert if that we can go to discuss this issue with the Ministry of Health. And then, of course, we as a federation have the obligation to show them how we can make chess possible again over the board. Yeah? And it is quite clear, it will be more easy to start with small tournaments and with national tournaments, and the bigger the tournament becomes and the more international it will be, the more difficult it will be. But exactly we'll just know it, I hope, in 10 days, 2 weeks, that we have really some perspective for the future, at least in this case. Yeah. And finally to say is that you cannot seriously now already say how the things will really develop. Yeah. For this, we should also think, of course, of some plan B, for example, yeah, and especially these international tournaments are very much connected. I think how will people allowed to travel inside of Europe? Yeah, up to now, you know, my wife is from Lithuania. She cannot go to Lithuania up to now because she would have to stay there 2 weeks in quarantine. Yeah, so now just starts Austria to open some borders to Germany, to Switzerland and other neighbor countries, but not, for example, up to now to Italy, and I think Slovenia is also not up to now. Yeah, so this will be the biggest problem, I think, for international tournaments. Yeah, and for this I want also to mention this one idea what also was discussed very often. Yeah, when we are not able to play tournaments over the board and come all together, yeah, then we should think to organize maybe some tournaments for youth, so that it is not possible to come together. Yeah, maybe with online chess, but with standard time control, and then you collect the members of one country in one place. Yeah, and then it could be observed from some arbiter and play against members of other countries. So it could be possible in a plan B to make some tournaments possible, even with standard chess. And I think this is what is now missing, because Rapid and Blitz is more than enough tournaments online, but the standard tournament time we do not play, and to make here possible something for players would be a possibility.
Thank you. This is some very good ideas. I think also because also when we were discussing, of course, if it will not be possible to make team events this year, it's a good idea to organize a team or club event, maybe to internet and maybe on site. I mean, let's say, yes, for example, we can organize a European Championship with the teams playing from one place with an arbiter, with Zooms that will be visible to all. And this is a very nice idea. And it's also in our plans, yes, if we don't have the club championship of the team, if we can make something also a club or team championship through internet, and this idea, because with few people, with 4, 5 players, it's easier to gather somewhere and play all together with another team. Thank you. Someone from another country, I don't know, Switzerland, I saw some strict restrictions.
Yes, we in Switzerland we got restrictions of 5 persons per room, and this just for chess training, so junior chess and everything. Competitions are not possible at the moment.
Is any forecast about this in your country?
In the next forecast will be on the 27th of May.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then we will know more of the government and can watch to the future. And then we will also definitely decide about our national championship, which isn't postponed yet.
Thank you. Thank you. I want also to have the opinion of English Federation. Okay, Alex make before a question, but also we have 2 representatives. And of course, England also has to take a lot of measures the last period. So it's an important also area to have some more information how they see this year that will go. Alex or Julian?
If I speak and then Julian can type in the chat if he thinks I'm wrong. So England is a long way behind a lot of what I've heard in the rest of continental Europe. We are still not quite in lockdown, but we might as well be. There's not much difference between the situation we are in and the lockdown. Schools are still closed. There's no sign of any professional sport starting up until July. I think the Premier League might start earlier, but it will be on the same sort of basis that the Bundesliga is. Our national championships are cancelled for the year. We're going to just have one next year instead. And I think in terms of going to international tournaments, there seems to be no appetite for many parents to travel to any of the youth events at the moment because they are sort of a little bit scared of doing so, I think. In terms of national level events, to some extent, the ECF is quite well protected because we don't organise a lot of the events ourselves. They are organised by local regions and local leagues without our involvement. All of those are suspended at the moment. There are no even thoughts about when we might start them again. The main idea seems to be to just wait and see what happens, and then once we have a clearer idea of when we might start, we'll sort of think about how we start. The 4NCL has done a couple of things. It suspended its season and it's going to assess in the autumn when it's safe to redo that. In the meantime, we've organised an online league which is ongoing at the moment. And in fact, the ECF in general is moving a lot of competitions, not replacing the over-the-board events, but starting new ones online. And people are playing in those in quite good numbers, which is very helpful, very good. But there doesn't seem to be any appetite or even thought about starting over-the-board chess just at the moment, and I don't really expect anyone will do that until the autumn, September, October. I think once sport in general gets restarted in this country and schools are back to normal, then I think organisers will start thinking about it. Speaking for myself, organising local events, even if it were safe in September to organise a tournament, I would be nervous of doing so because even if it is sort of safe enough, I worry just how many of the players will think that, particularly given the majority of our players tend to be older and therefore more at-risk players. And therefore, I don't want to put a tournament on, find I get 50 players and lose a lot of money on the tournament when we normally get 150. So that's, I think, roughly where we are in England. Julian and whoever's operating the Chess in Schools account might sort of have another view, but I think that's a fair summary of where we're at the moment.
Thank you very much, Alex. We understand also that England is a little behind from the other countries, I mean in previous states, but this is also very important for us to know because as I said also some countries like England and UK, in general, all the area there, Russia, Turkey, that also normally they have big participation in events, especially with youth continents. I mean, they face more difficulties, let's say, to go, let's say, from this crisis. And this also, even we have something, will let's say, we organize something, this will affect a lot the participation.
Malcolm, do you want to say something? Because I know that you're working on e-chess very actively.
I can. Just a few small things. I hope, Theo, at the end of the meeting, someone can summarize all the points that have been raised from the point of view of trying to create an ECU protocol for running tournaments. I'm looking at my notebook to the side of me here, and I think I've counted 17 different things that need to be taken into consideration, and I know I missed the first 7 minutes of the meeting. My perspective on it is that, yeah, Britain is going to be behind the rest of the world. We're kind of used to that in general anyway. And I do anticipate, however, that we'll try and run a London Chess Classic. And I haven't got the money for that yet, but if I did get the money for it, I would be open, perhaps, if the conditions were right, and we'd have to make a decision in a couple of months, to trying to host some kind of European Chess Union event, particularly one that's had to go missing, if you like, because of the issues. So yeah, that would be the two main things I'd want to contribute today. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Malcolm. Yes, I mean, we are going to do exactly this. Of course, we will summarize all this meeting, and what we want to create is one page that we can also upload information from different countries, and especially when tournaments will start and you make some regulations, please share with us, and we will share with all federations, and we can see how, so everybody can see what specifically is inside to these regulations to each country. We will summarize. I want to know if someone else want to take the floor from the rest colleagues that are with us. I think we have a good feeling from all parts of Europe, north, south, east, and west. But there are maybe some federations also that they want to speak. Please. Petr, you want to say something? Yes, yes.
Yes, just very slowly, just a little information from Czech. I think here is, firstly, we have the very strict rules, but now the government is putting the sports. So we are starting in the second part of the June to play the leagues, except extra league, which is not finished because of the foreigners, of course. The traveling is the problem of the tournaments. But normally we have up to 100 people. I think since 25th May, it can be up to 300 people. So as I know, for example, Czech Open, as you know, in Pardubice, one of the biggest festivals in the world, they changed the term to September, of course, because of traveling, but it will be smaller, but still now information is up to 300 people. So tournaments are starting, preparing from the July, what I have information. So we will see, we have some, as you know, our very important person is a very strong chess player, is the extra league level guy. So according to him and according to the government, the information for the team competition, which starts in the second part of the June, is that the player doesn't have to have a mask, and that doesn't have to be the distance 2 meters. Just the pieces has to be, that it has to be disinfection. I don't know if it's okay, my English, disinfection.
Yes.
And the pieces, the chessboard, and the tables has to be cleared after each game. So this is, I think that people are positively, it's good now. Now it looks well, so I hope it will stay, and I wish to all of you a good health, of course.
Thank you, Petr. But what this doctor from Singapore described today, and the other doctors is a little different that you are going to, let's say, to have in your regulations, because they said more important is mask than the pieces and all these things. And some diseases. But anyway, of course, this is why there are different opinions in each country.
Of course.
Why you need to summarize all these things. Yuri Knub from Ukraine, do you want to take the floor?
Okay, I just sent a message that since tomorrow all competition in Ukraine are permitted, but there are some restrictions, less than 50 participants and no spectators at all. You know, we're gonna hold a European Women Rapid and Blitz Championship in October. So technically, I can confirm we can have this venue, but nobody knows what would be with travel industry, what will be with these clashes overlay with different events. So I fully agree with Ignatius. We cannot, for the moment, confirm that there will be a sense to have this venue for these terms. I mean, the third decade in October. Theodoros?
Yes, thank you, Yuri. I don't know if someone else is still here. Malinda, I saw from Albania. I'm looking mostly the message of this. Is not anymore here from Romania. Maybe Nina, that they will host in December in the European Championship, if she wants to say something from Slovenia.
Yes, of course,
Yes,
Nina
hello
has to
everybody.
speak
Can you hear me?
because it's yeah, Nina. Yeah, we are expecting that Slovenia almost is opening everything now. I heard about this. Okay.
Great. So hello from Ljubljana. Thank you for all information. In Slovenia, we already prepared safety recommendations and guidelines for chess tournaments. I can share it with you. In 2 days, we will be allowed to make all sports competitions with less than 50 participants. We will begin with national championship in the June. So in Slovenia, conditions are almost stabilized. Our government has already declared an end of the epidemic in Slovenia. So we expect to make or realize the European Championship in December. So we are worried about circumstances in the other countries, but we hope for the best. So we expect you to come anyway and find a way to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. This is a very good message and positive. And okay, it will be also important for ECU, but also for all the professional players if we can organize individual championships, as also the women in Romania. I told you that this is our main target for 2020. And I want also, if you have this file of these protocols that you made on regulations, to share with us. Okay. You can even share here. I mean, but I suppose it is in your language.
Yes, I will make a translation and then send it to you.
Yes, it's great. It's great because we will circulate all to, and we want every other paper that is related from each federation. So maybe summarizing some things of all this. Okay, and if anybody, of course, wants to speak anytime, you can you can ask and take the floor. Just because we are already almost 2 hours, so I want to summarize some things and to give you some information. First of all, because it is this question, I listen to you. As ECU, we understand the problems of organizers. And this is why we decided to postpone the bidding procedure from 2020 to 2022 to 30th of October for events. So our preliminary decision is that if one event doesn't happen here, then to make it possible the next 2 years to transfer on 2021 or 2022, this will be also some consultation between the organizers. So we know that all organizers also make efforts. Maybe they have damage from this situation. So we will not leave one organizer that it couldn't happen because of this pandemic, the tournament, one federation, not to do it in the next 2 years, 2021 or 2022. This is already in the frame of our decisions, and this is why we postponed the bidding procedure. Now, for all the others, and to summarize, let's say, I think that there are some, first of all, main rules that we more or less everywhere is the same. We need to start with small tournaments and try. This is what every country is doing mostly, except maybe Iceland, that is starting with school event, and some other cases that they can make bigger events. And try slowly to see what will be the effect of these competitions and how the situation will develop. And as also the doctors always say, so in any country, we don't know if the things are better now during the summer, what will happen September and October when, let's say, the weather will change again. Then about all these medical protocols that this medical protocol. Okay, Alex is asking if we are going to make European Team Championship of 2021. If Olympiad is in 2021, we don't change something from this, Alex. But let's see. Also, I am not sure also when the Chess Olympiad will be the next. Don't be 100% that it will be in 2021. Okay, this is not our matter here to discuss. Zurab is in presidential board. Of course, this is a discussion with the board, but it's not 100% that we will have Chess Olympiad on 2021. So this is not a matter now to discuss it, and not only for reasons of the pandemic. Ignatius, yes, Ignatius. I also said that I like the idea of Mr. Kastner. And is our, let's say, also plan, if we don't make team events and club events, to organize an online club event. And maybe this will be a good idea to make a team event between national teams that they are in the same place with one arbiter and they play other teams. And we will discuss this format, let's say, in the next 1-2 months, and we will come up with some idea. Andrew, yes, we are thinking about online championship, SECU. We have now this first test event that we are making now. In the last board also, we discussed that it will be possible, if continue with the situation, to organize a youth event and a club team event. Now, about the medical protocols, for me, what I write down from the today, let's say, meeting and the presentation of the doctor is that, and of course we will summarize all this, is that first, the doctor says that, all the doctors says that the mask is necessary. In a mask, let's say, I mean, this is what all the doctors said. And almost all the doctors says that the gloves are not necessary, are not helping. Okay, because this I said, if we summarize like this, everybody says. The doctors says almost all masks and of course cleaning and disinfection, let's say, very important between the rounds, and very good ventilation, open windows. And I will add also that we can have an outdoor chess in some parts. Okay, starting some activities like rapid and this in some countries are possible. In squares, it will be much more easy for people to come and for healthy reasons. This for me is also a recommendation to all in order to restart activities. So there are some main common things that they were said by doctors. I think also that we all agree from all the listen that it will be very difficult to organize this year international youth events. This looks very difficult. For world is absolutely sure, if we're speaking about world events, because this is involving 200 countries. For Europe also, it's very difficult because also these events needs a lot of preparation, needs 4 or 5 months before being an invitation. You cannot organize it in 2 months, except it's a very let's say, a small scale event. Okay, so we will try to write down all these main things that the doctor says. For me, it's clear what is the direction. I mean, from all this that I heard today, and it is not much different than what also already we have estimated in ECU meetings till now. And please help us also to create this database. Nina will send first, Gunnar can send us some information. It's good also to publish photos from all these events that are starting to happen, because this also will help people's psychology that over the board events are starting in some countries. We will focus also on this matter, and in order to help one each other to make it better and restart our activities. So, Zurab, you want to close? I don't know if somebody else.
Yeah, okay. First of all, again, thanks to all of you for participation, and of course our doctors and their recommendations. I already asked Elena already was preparing during our meeting main guidelines, and she will send to us also, which would be protocol for us. And what I suggest now from this meeting, so within 1 month's time, we can do another meeting like this, and to see, first of all, to collect all information, to prepare the guidelines, and then again have a meeting just to spend 1 hour our time to share with what is a future development of the case. Thank you so much for participation. And thank you, Ignatius, because all famous doctors brought by Ignatius. You see, in Singapore, people decide not to become a chess player, but they become very good doctors.